Let's get into the big topic of open source, something that we actually say at Red Hat.
This is so awesome.
We are an open culture that believes in the importance of
What is that process that a developer, or let's say
as the Kubernetes ecosystem really boomed?
Hi, and welcome to another episode of In the Clouds. I am your host, Stu Miniman. Here we are in March 2026. I don't know about y'all, but it felt for a little bit. January was one of those months that took a long time to go through. And I know February is just a couple days shorter, but I felt like I blinked. And here we are in March. So almost through Q1, a lot of activity going on in the industry, going on in the world. But boy, really excited. We've got a good episode here, as we tend to do on this program 3 times a year. We talk about the latest in OpenShift, and we're going to dig in on OpenShift 4.21 with a specific focus on security. So let me bring on in our guest for today, Anjali Telang. She is a senior principal product manager with a focus on security, and was also a keynote speaker last year at one of the KubeCons, talking about the topic we're going to dig in today. So Anjali, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Stu. This is very exciting, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion.
All right. So as I mentioned, your security focus, if you could, for our audience, give us a little bit about your background. You're a 2-time Red Hatter. So, what brought you here? What's a little bit of your background, and, what do you work on day to day today?
Yeah, so my background is a lot in data centers and, covering a lot of engineering roles as well as product roles. I started my journey with Sony Ericsson. Then I moved into NetApp, and really, all the data center security, cloud security journey started there in SAN engineering. And then from NetApp, I moved to where I was primarily doing engineering roles and also leading a lot of security initiatives in the product. Then I moved into Red Hat, where I was part of the NFV organization. I actually started the NFV program in Red Hat, and with OpenStack, and got a little deeper into the whole cloud product management. I also worked in other places. I was also part of the VMware product management team, where I was also doing identity and authentication. So working upstream has been there since last 5 to 6 years. I've been working with SIGAuth, working in SPIFFE Inspire projects, a lot of identity and credential management projects upstream, Cert Manager, as well as external secrets operator, all of these different projects. And I absolutely enjoy working in this area. Folks who know me know how passionate I am about bringing workload identities, and with the changes that we are seeing in the whole software ecosystem today, moving from cloud native to newer models, like newer workloads, such as agentic AI workloads. um, all of those are very, very interesting for identity and access. And yeah, I'm very excited to be able to contribute in this space.
Awesome. Anjali, I'm curious how much of our audience knows what a SAN is. I've got history in storage area networks. I worked at NetApp's chief competitor for a decade. And yeah, you go through some of the stuff. NFV. Yep, I lived through the OpenStack years. Covered that as an analyst pretty heavily. And our telco customers,
Yes.
that network function virtualization was a really interesting wave. So yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I'm like, cool. I was like adjacent to some of those things, or worked on some of them over time.
Amazing.
And it's funny, of course, how we always say it's kind of a small industry, and a lot changes, but a lot of these things, there's certain pieces. Identity's been, an important topic. It's one of those, when I've talked about cloud for the last 10, 15 years, that identity management, everything from single sign-on to, how I get into all my apps.
Yes.
Microsoft has a strong play there. Open source has an important role to play. And
Absolutely.
you work on the Spiffy and Spire stuff. And I remember talking to the folks that created that project back in probably it was 2020, right around the time the pandemic started. I was still doing the Cube for the KubeCon and stuff, and got to talk to some of those people that started them. Before we deep dive on security, let's get out of the way. OpenShift 4.21. So as I said at the often, we're always following the upstream Kubernetes. If I remember right, it's Kubernetes 1.34.
Yes.
It's one of those things, at the Red Hat side, we've always got our releases, and I sometimes even forget what the upstream version is. But a lot of good pieces from a virtualization standpoint. You worked at VMware. The big discussion lately has been the move that they're pushing people towards going to VCF 9. And of course, OpenShift now in 4.21 will be supported on VCF 9. And then from our virtualization features, there's been a whole ton going on. The one that I was pretty excited to see was the cross-cluster live migration, which I remember when VMware came out with that technology, and it was like, well, live migration is magic and that's awesome,
Yes.
but when do I get it beyond just there? So of course, latency, there's a lot of considerations there. And a lot of these, KVM's been around for, much more than a decade. So
yes.
adding some of those pieces have been in there. And the last one I'll mention, since this is in the clouds, have to talk about, we've got the final one of the major clouds that we've got our virtualization offering with our friends at Google. So Google Cloud virtualization support. So we've already had Amazon for a few years, Azure for more than a year, Google, Oracle Cloud, and IBM. So again, it's easy. We will put thanks Rohan, our producer, already put there's the what's new in OpenShift 4.21. There's slides and a video, and that's 90 minutes. So we're not to do that. We hit some of the high points, lots of updates in the core. From an AI standpoint, there's so much we're enabling, and we'll talk about where security and identity fits with you. But anything generally 4.21 you want to talk about before we dig into your specialty?
421, I would definitely like to highlight from upstream also, structured authentication is coming, which is so exciting. We've already pioneered and, in OpenShift, we've brought that capability in as GA with 420 ZStream, and we are extending that. We are also in OpenShift bringing very, very exciting security features such as kubekms integration is coming. Then 6-store compliant images for core components. This is so fundamental and amazing to see happen because now all of your platform images are validated, and that they're coming from a trusted source,
Yep.
which is Red Hat. So
yeah,
this is really exciting.
Software supply chain has been super hot topic. I remember, when SigStore launched a few years ago, that was pretty good. I managed to get a SigStore hoodie at one of
Oh
the
wow,
events,
I want
which
one
is
now.
always good. I'm
And
lucky. I do get to go to quite a bit of the KubeCon shows, and I am at the point where I really need to stop picking up some of the outerwear because there's really only so many hoodies that you can put in.
and they're in demand. We all love it, right? Like we definitely love it. And the great thing about OpenShift is that we take and extend whatever is there in the core to the layered products. So you will see 6-store integration happen at a deployment level with ACS, and also at a core level at runtime with Cryo. So that's the amazing part. Like I mentioned, we are bringing some exciting features with kubekms integration also, making sure that becomes the KMS v2 APIs are available. We are also looking at bringing in more post-quantum computing, and we'll definitely talk about it, but post-quantum computing is so critical given the geopolitical landscape and everything that's happening. we want to be ready. We want to provide quantum safe algorithm support that's coming with service meshes already with MLKEM. So this is very, very exciting to see
Yeah,
progress.
Anjali, post-quantum cryptography is tough enough to stay, let alone kind of wrapping our heads around as to what quantum might do to be able to be like, oh, hey, no, normally it would take us, years to be able to crack this. Oh, but on a quantum, it's going to completely change things. So how do we get ready for that? Something our peers on the RHEL team started, and it was great to see that roll through the rest of the product line.
Yeah, and we want to make sure that it is aligned with what is being used today. So, we have like a good approach of making sure the existing TLS landscape is still working, and we have a hybrid way to bring in the newer functionality.
Yeah, I will say, anybody in the audience, if you've got questions, I was glad to see we've got a listener from Bangladesh who's a fan of Red Hat. So thank you for joining us. I've got questions we'll go through, but please throw them in there if we can help. So,
Absolutely.
Anjali, we talked about software supply chain. You mentioned identity as a core. Zero trust is one of those. It was almost a buzzword that I heard around security. And specifically, Spiffy Inspire, if I get it right, it's the Zero Trust Workload Identity Manager, or we have to acronym everything, ZTWIM. So can you help us understand, Zero Trust in general is, my understanding is, give the least amount of access to those who need it for the least amount of time, because as I said, zero trust. I don't trust anything. I don't trust anyone. Is that really who it says it is, or are they using the right machine? So what is, help us connect that with the identity management piece.
Yes, great question. So, like you said, zero trust is never trust, always verify. I love this approach because a lot of times we wonder what that trust means, right? Like, what does trust mean? So we want to base that trust on something, and that's where the identity piece really comes in, and that's why it becomes so essential, because you want to ensure that you're checking at every instance, at every request, who is it that is accessing, and whether they are who they claim to be. So that's the validity part of it that is very, very essential, and that's why zero trust identity becomes so critical. Zero trust identity manager that we are bringing with, by the way, you can give the credit for the long name and the acronym ZTWIM to me. I was very instrumental in bringing this name because I really wanted to emphasize how critical identity is in this approach of zero trust, that more and more customers, organizations, and software is being modeled around this. So yeah, that's where I will stand. I can definitely give you more details and examples as we
Yeah,
go
I,
along.
I I guess there's a couple things I'd like to dig into. First of all, how does this fit into the broad discussion of sovereignty? So, we're going to be at KubeCon Europe in a couple of weeks. We'll throw in case you're going, we'll throw the link on there. Red Hat. We've got a keynote. We've got a big booth. We've got dozens of segments. I'll be there myself with a bunch of our technical marketing and product management people, and always like to talk there. But especially in Europe, sovereignty has really risen to one of the most important topics that we're hearing from customers. And I, I would think identity goes hand in hand with that, but help us, understand specifically how it fits.
Yeah, that's a very, very good question, especially given the geopolitical landscape and the times that we are going through at the moment. I'm seeing more and more interest in sovereignty, and sovereignty is not really a new concept. It's making sure that you are aligned at a geo level, and you're making sure that your resources are tenant specific, and a lot of tenant specific interactions are handled through identity. That's where the connect of sovereignty and identity really comes into place, and making sure that we are aligned, we are checking where the root of trust is, making sure that that is aligned geographically in the tenant's area, in the tenant's location, and tying that with the validation of the identity is very important.
Okay. Um, the other hot topic, of course, on everybody's mind these days is AI. So, is there a fit as to how this fits into AI? Help us understand that.
I will say that AI actually gave a new lease of life to all the identity folks because, with the zero trust principles, one of the key things that I would like to emphasize on is that identity becomes your new perimeter now. You've always had networking as a perimeter construct, with certificates, with CAs, with everything being the credentials being handled through your IP based or networking based constructs. Now it's not so much just networking. Now you want to make sure that the identity also encompasses a lot more richer context about the application, about the user that is accessing. So identity becomes the new perimeter in that at every stage you're checking based on identity. And so this becomes a very important construct in the zero trust architectures. Uh, s- so
Yeah.
with
I'm-
AI, this becomes even more relevant,
yeah.
and that's where I was going with agentic AI. Agents are more humans than you would think they are machines, right? So you want to know how they're behaving, what they are accessing, and and identity at uh, validating identity at every stage helps audit this interaction that the agents have
Okay.
in the agentic AI world.
Yeah. That was kind of my follow up on there. Is wait, doesn't if I you know create a job and ask for my agentic AI to go out and do it, does it take my identity? Does it have its own lesser access? How do I manage that? Gosh,
Great
I
question.
immediately go to the thoughts of like, wait, if I'm me, there's so many things I can check, but if it's agentic, boy, hackers, it seems like that would be a real risk that we always talk about, like the surface area of attack. And it's like, oh boy, this is a whole nother world that would just, potentially have holes.
Yeah, and that's why there is this need of connecting the human identity and the machine identity. And there is a lot of work. By the way, there's a great presentation that we did in KubeCon North America right after the keynote that we did. Please go check it out. It's called Build a Bot, and how we can sort of have a trail of audit between a human and a machine, and how the machine behaves on behalf of the human. So please do check out that tutorial that we have presented on behalf of delegation, which means basically taking your human identity and giving the access to an agent based on root of trust that is given with SPIFFE and Spire. So that's where the human machine identity link up really happens, and we want to audit that, we want to control that.
Cool. Hey, gonna take a quick side. We actually got an interesting question that I know I have thoughts on, and you probably do too. They said, "Hey, can you give me the secret sauce to landing a job at Red Hat?" Here's one piece of advice. Everything you do at Red Hat, comes from the upstream, and we're involved in the community. So your resume for many of the software and product related roles are, your GitHub is your resume. So if you're already participating and contributing, and even, it's not just code, there's other ways to participate in the community and support. That's one of the doors into Red Hat and participating. Anjali, you got any other tips? You've come in twice, so yeah.
Yeah, no, exactly to your point. I will say open source first. Contribute upstream. Start with the very first issues that the community is presenting. Get involved as much as possible. I personally have been involved in the upstream communities very closely. Uh, before rejoining Red Hat as well. And so really it is a community driven effort that we then bring and productize in Red Hat. So we really value the contributions upstream.
Yeah. Wondering if you can help us just, give us the bumper sticker for ZTWIM. How does that increase our security posture compared to how we used to do it before?
So I'll give you the bumper sticker. Humans, when we are accessing anything, we do a lot of MFA, right? Like a multi-factor authentication, where okay, you go to a website and then you are asked to log in, and then you are asked to verify again using some sort of device. So that multi-factor authentication is so important to make sure you are the human that you claim to be, and you're validated against it. Well, guess what? Machines also need to get to that level, and Zero Trust Workload Identity Manager brings that to you, because it gives an identity to your machine, to your service, to your application, not because it's just asking for one, but because it has been validated. It has been validated at node level, at workload level, and only then provided an identity after vetting. So that's the bumper sticker that I will say. Don't just give identity because you're there in the system, but you're given an identity because you're validated first.
Awesome. Great explanation. Wondering if you can give us a little bit of insight. Most open source projects, that where did this one come out of? How has community engagement been? And, even more importantly, where are we seeing kind of customer adoption? Are there any specific use cases or verticals where this has been more popular to start with?
Yeah, so this began in 2017. And just for context, the creators of Kubernetes are the ones who actually created this project. So Joe Beda is very instrumental in bringing this project to life. And I have had the fortune of working with the maintainers as well, Evan Gilman, Andrew Harding. So a big shout out to all of them. So this project comes from there, and it was designed to ensure that identities are provided after vetting them, because they looked at the existing ecosystem of cloud native uh, workload identities, what that means, and how that scales as we move from VM to containers to now newer workloads. A lot of thought process was, already put into place. If I will, to creating this framework. And this is an extremely extensible framework. Like I mentioned that we now are extending it to agentic AI. So it started off with VMs. In fact, it started off with vetting VM at node level and at workload level, and then providing identities. Sometime in 2002, we added support for ensuring that Kubernetes and containers are also in that play, and we are seamlessly providing identities to workloads running on top of Kubernetes. And then now we are looking at more agentic AI workloads. So um, this has been a journey, and this has been adopted across a lot of different companies. The scale, and so it provides a cross cloud federation. So you can have workload in, say, Azure talking to a workload in say AWS, and it provides that kind of cross cloud federation. It can scale enormously even within your data centers, on-prem environments. And this has been proven. Uber has deployed this at scale. They have a case study, by the way. It's all upstream, it's all available. We've seen a lot of financial industry players as well release a lot of material on how they've used this. Great talks in workload identity sessions last year by Block as well as by Fidelity. So please do check out all of the open source sessions there. Um, this is designed to work in a production environment at scale across all of the different constructs, whether VMs or containers.
Yeah, sounds like a strong fit with what we've been doing at OpenShift for the last decade. So, yeah, and just so I understand, it's from a Red Hat standpoint. Is this just an operator that sits on OpenShift, no additional licensing if I'm an OpenShift customer?
So if you're an OpenShift customer, then you will need an OPP subscription to enable this, because it is a multi-cluster solution,
Okay.
essentially.
Yes. So,
If you have
OpenShift Platform Plus, which gives you Advanced Cluster Manager and Advanced Cluster Security.
That's
So,
correct.
yeah.
And if you have Advanced Cluster Manager and Advanced Cluster Security, even then you will have advantage of using this solution. It is an operator, so we bring it as a day 2 solution that you can easily bring in and fit into your system without disrupting anything that's already working for you on the cluster.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, just anything else on this topic, or are we ready to go for some rapid fire questions?
I can endlessly talk about this topic. I'm extremely passionate about it. But yeah, I definitely want to mention that this is available as an operator on OpenShift, which means the deployment, the configuration is very easy for you. We make it very easy with our CRDs. You can choose how you want the SPIFFE ID registration to happen. You can choose which namespaces you want to actually provide SPIFFE IDs. Maybe you want to start with only a few namespaces and then extend it to all. So we give you a lot of these configuration options today and enable you for using this. It works, as I said, with X509 and JOTS, which means it works with OIDC identity providers, as well as it works with traditional MTLS and TLS certificates. So a lot of different options there. Do check it out. Do check out the resources that are available for it.
Awesome. Yeah, we shared your blog post in the comments there, but I think we're ready to go to our questions from a Red Hat. All right. First one, Anjali, 2026. There's a lot going on. I want to give you a free hour. And what are you going to choose to stimulate your mind? Are you going to go read a book? Are you going to go listen to a podcast? Are you going to go do some AI activity or something else?
I'll be honest, and this is completely unfiltered. I would go, use a Claude and set up some MCP servers, try to create tools to be better efficient myself and get hands-on with AI. That's what I will do.
Yeah, it does seem to be the popular answer this year. I give everybody things. Even I had my previous guest was like, "Oh, I actually have like an AI tool that takes the reading and the podcasts and consolidates it and does all those things for me." So, like, yeah, I've been getting some good, interesting suggestions there. All right,
Yeah.
thank you. Number 2, you did a keynote at KubeCon in front of thousands of people. Want to ask you, what's more stressful? Giving a keynote, standing on stage and talking to thousands of people, or doing a live demo?
Uh, I will still say doing a live demo. At the keynote, I was, this is, if you wake me up at 2 a.m., I will still be able to talk about Spiffy and Spire. I'm that passionate about it. So
Yeah.
even in front of thousands of people, I was just, it was just like talking to my friend. Live demo, I definitely, I would be a little bit concerned because I want to make sure everything is working perfectly.
All right. I've mentioned a couple of times that you are a Red Hat boomerang. I'm curious. How has your second time at Red Hat been different from your first?
Well, I would say it's almost the same. It just felt like coming back, but the focus is different, right? Now we have more different workloads to work with. There was so much focus on OpenStack at one point, then it moved to OpenShift, and now we're seeing AI. So it's just great to see that we can encompass so many different technologies and still leverage a lot of what we already have developed.
Awesome. You have made it through the questions from a Red Hat. So excellent. Nice job. All right, Anjali, you mentioned there's so much more that people can learn. Last thing I have for you, registration is open for Red Hat Summit. It's middle of May in Atlanta. You're going to be there. I'm expecting you're a speaker there.
Yes.
I'll be there. I've got a great panel about OpenShift that we'll do and Ask Me Anything, which I'm looking forward to. If you could give the audience a little hint, what can they expect to see from the security team when it comes to Red Hat Summit?
You will see a lot on, of course, the big buzzword, which is AI. We want to showcase how we are helping secure AI systems, how we are using AI to enhance what we offer in terms of our products. So a lot of focus on AI, but also on making sure that it's across the ecosystem, VM, containers, AI. We are able to handle security across all of these different elements. Of course, AI, the S in MCP stands for security, which means there is no security in MCP, for example. So, so we want to make sure that we address the AI system only because there is an imminent need to do that. But you'll see focus across all different areas: confidential computing, PQC, all of these amazing technologies.
Awesome. Yeah, it's hard to believe how fast May is going to come here. A lot of planning going in. So yeah, definitely anybody in the audience, if you're going to KubeCon Amsterdam, definitely stop by and talk to us. We'll have some strong security people that can talk there. And of course, OpenShift Commons will be there. So the day one, we've got lots of customers speaking, and all of that will end up on YouTube. So whichever channel you're watching this on, it's actually the OpenShift channel. We'll have all the OpenShift Commons piece. And at Summit, of course, look forward to some great keynotes and lots of interesting technologies to dig in. So Anjali, thank you so much for joining us. Looking forward to seeing you in a couple of months in Atlanta. And thank you to our audience. As always, if you have questions for us, topics we should cover, guests that you think we should get on the program, definitely always welcome your feedback. And as always, thank you for joining us on your journey in the clouds.
Thank you.